Alright, so we'll get started. I'm just going to pick this first one here. It kind of looks like a waving flag, so I like that. We're going to talk about the different tools quickly. I'm just going to use what's called like stylus things. So I'm going to use a little candy stick. You can get that anywhere. A kid's pencil, it might be too big, so I might not use that. And then this is the tool I've shown you 100 times, just a pencil with a little stick pin inside. It's not very clear, sorry. And then I have a straw in case I want to make any circles. I don't know that I'll use all of these, but at least I have them ready for me. And of course I have a number of brushes, both round and flat top, as I like to call them. Alright, so the first one that I'm going to start with, I'm going to use the candy stick and I'm going to make a flag out of this one. So I'm going to give all my paints a shake first, and then I'll put them, just a little bit. You really don't need a lot for this kind of thing. Just a little squirt like that is good to start with, and I'll do that of all the colors. Alright, so I'm going to use the candy stick first, and I'm going to work with the blue to get my, it's the blue section of my flag started here. I'm just going to dip it in there, straight into it, so it has kind of like a nice gob at the end, but nothing overly huge. I'm just going to kind of start, halfway up the one side and just put a dot. And the first dot is always going to be the biggest, so be aware of that. The harder you push, the bigger the dot will be. That's kind of the trick when you're using this type of a painting technique that's not using a brush. Technically, the actual way that you would do these is you would use something called a stylus, which is actually a metal, like a little metal thing with a ball on the end, a metal ball on the end. They use it a lot for like metalwork and things like that, but it's now become some kind of like a trendy craze thing. So I'm just going to keep going like this. Of course, we're going to do it the DIY version, which is candy sticks, pencils, and push pins. So that's the way we roll here at the library. So I'm just going to fill up this section. You can see that there are some sections that I left blank. I don't want them to be huge at the end, so I'm just going to use the smaller stylus, the one that's on the end of the pencil. And I call them stylus, they're not, but the push pin option. And I'm just going to kind of put a gob on the end and then paint the circle as big as I want it. So this does take a little bit longer, but I want only that very first dot to be larger, so I want the rest of them to kind of look like they're sort of fading off to the side. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Again, you can do whatever it is that you'd like. If you absolutely hate this dot look, you certainly can just paint the sections and do them that way, and then put your dots on for your stars, whatever it is that you want. So that's all I'm going to do for the blue. And then I'm going to go on to I'm going to use the same effect, but I'm actually going to get something else. This is just some random thing that I found in my kid's junk drawer. It looks like a stopper to maybe a ball of some kind, but it's way smaller than the candy stick. So I think I'm just going to try this. And I'm going to start with the white because on the flag, that's right underneath the blue section. So I'm going to use that as kind of my baseline. And this is something that you want to practice. If it's a new piece you haven't used before, you want to practice on maybe just a scrap piece of paper to see how big the dots will be. And then you can kind of work from there. You can do this in kind of a wavy pattern if you'd like. I'm just going to go straight across because my rock is kind of wonky. So it already looks like kind of like it's waving. So I'm just going to leave it straight across. Again, you can change yours up however you want. You can do straight lines with dots. You can do dots with straight lines. I don't care. Whatever you want to do is great. So now that I have the white one down, now I know I have where I can put my red. So I'm going to have them spaced close together, but they're not going to touch. Now it's a little bit further away in the video, but they shouldn't touch. And I'm not pushing down really, really hard because I don't want a huge dot. I'm just sort of letting the gob of paint sort of touch the rock and then doing the whole thing that way. So this is how I'm going to work. I'm going to do, now that I have two reds, I'm going to go back to the white and do two lines of white, one on the bottom and one on the top. And I'll do that same process over and over again until I get to the top and bottom. You certainly can do this effect with using a paintbrush. So if you don't have any kind of candy sticks or hard plastic pieces that are round like that you can use, you certainly can just use a paintbrush. It's totally fine. You will get the same effect. It just might not be kind of like a perfect circle. That's why this is kind of a popular thing. It makes basically a perfect circle, which is kind of neat. So there you have it. I think it looks really great. There's 13 stars, or excuse me, 13 stripes, and then the blue section. So we're gonna put, now I'm gonna go back with a little stylus. I'm gonna put little teeny tiny dots. They're not stars, they're just little dots that kind of go in a continuous line across each of the blue rows. So I have 5 rows there. I'm gonna put 10 little dots on each one, so that represents the 50 stars. Alright, so there we have that one. I think it looks really great. I'm going to move that one over to the side, and I'm going to start on the next one. What you want for this one is you want a rock that's kind of a triangle shape like this one, because I'm going to actually make a folded flag out of this. So I'm going to start with the blue, and I'm just going to do kind of like a loop on this top section. I'm just going to kind of paint an oval, I guess, around this one edge. It's not too far in. It's basically on the edge, but I want to be able to see the red and white stripes on the side, like when an American flag is folded. You want to be able to see that red and white stripe on the side. So I want to make sure that I leave a big enough section that you can actually see that from the top when it's laying down on the ground, or from the back if it happens to get flipped over. So I'm just going to kind of do all the blue section, paint the entire thing. Obviously make sure that you only paint the top first, so that you can let that dry, and then you can go ahead and put it down. If you paint all the blue right now, which you certainly can do, you will probably end up holding this rock until it dries. Luckily it dries pretty fast, but that's what you most likely will be doing for the next, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry, and then once that dries I'll come back and I'll paint the other side. So now that the side is dried, I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same process on the back. I do have one spot that's a little wet on the front still, but it's kind of like in the middle. It's really not a big problem, so I'm just going to keep working. I'm kind of an impatient painter, so I'm just going to keep going. But I'm doing exactly the same process. You want to make sure when you're using this that you don't use just a little bit of paint. You want to use a good amount of paint. Rocks are extremely porous, obviously, so you want to be able to use a lot of paint so that you can get down in those grooves if that's the look you're going for. And since this is kind of a remembrance type of Memorial Day type of thing, I want to be sure that I get a good coat of paint for the blue. You can always put a second coat on, and a third coat, whatever it is that you need before you go on to the other steps. Make sure that you brush out any ridges too. Since you're using a good amount of paint, you don't want to leave those ridges on there to dry and get all bumpy and wonky, because once they dry you can't get them off. Alright, I think that's good. I'll let that dry for just a little bit, and then I'm going to go on to the stripes on the side. Actually, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start it. I'm kind of impatient, like I said. There's a way I can hold it. We'll figure it out. So I'm going to actually, when a flag is folded, when it's folded the 13 times, you can only actually see two red and 2 white stripes on each of the sides. So I'm not sure which is first, and I apologize if this is incorrect, but I don't have it in front of me to reference, but you get 2 reds and 2 whites. So I'm just going to paint a red here, and I'm going to make sure that it goes all the way to the blue. So if for some reason the blue paint that you have is not completely dry, you do want to wait till it's dry, at least around this top ring, so you don't get any of the blue mixed into your red section. So I'm using a flat top brush for this. I like this brush because it gives a good flat chiseling edge so that I can get right along there. I just kind of hold the line of the brush, or the edge of the brush, perpendicular to the blue line, and I just kind of pull it sideways. Again, you don't want gobs of paint when you're doing that kind of a thing. You just want a good amount of paint so it'll keep spreading. And if you have to do it several times over just to make sure you get it coated, just go ahead and do that. Work a little bit at a time. I think I'm actually going to make it just a little bit wider. I think it's a little too small because obviously just dividing this into fourths. So I think it's a little bit too small. I kind of want them all to be even, which is what they should be. So I'm just going to add a little section on here. And sometimes reds, as we've talked about before, can be a little bit transparent. So after it dries, if you decide that it's a little too see-through, you can always just put another coat on there before you go on to the next color or afterwards. It's up to you. I kind of like that you can see a little bit of the rock through it, so I'm just going to leave that. And since I have the red on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and paint the other red one here. Looks really good. I'm just going to rinse my brush out quickly. The blue is completely dry now, so I don't have to worry about where I set it. These acrylic paints just dry really, really quickly. If you're going to put something outside, you can use a special kind of acrylic paint. They're called enamel paints. I'm just using regular craft paints because I'm going to seal it anyway, so it's entirely up to you which kind you want. You don't have to get anything special. I'm just using regular acrylic craft paints for this today. They're a little bit more versatile. They dry relatively quickly, but yet you still can work with them. So I don't know, they're just my go-to paint. So I'm going to do the same exact process here with the white, like you can see. Again, if the blue and the red are not completely dry, you will want to wait until they're dry to get that edge treatment on there, or that edge section of paint on there. Otherwise, you can have a pink stripe instead of a white one. So now I'm going to use the little stick pin stylus, the one that's on the end of the pencil. I'm going to try and write a word. I don't really have a super skinny brush, so I'm going to try and see if I can get it to work this way. Because it's not a very smooth surface, I don't know that it's going to work. So I'm going to just start by painting it a little bit at a time. But it's not looking like it's going to be too hard to get the curved letter. So I'm gonna actually the best it's gonna get. See if I can fill in this one little section here that's not quite, so sometimes with rocks, if they're not completely smooth, obviously, it's a little bit hard to get some curved letters in there, so you may have to go back and just do a couple little touch-ups like that. So it just says remember on it. And now I'm gonna go ahead and, actually I don't need to rinse my brush out, but I'm already doing it, so I'll just keep going. I'm going to use the same brush that I have, that round, skinny round brush, and I'm going to paint some stars. So when the flag is folded, you really only see maybe 3 or 4 stars on the front. It's not very many. So I'm just going to do the standard like outline, like what you do, when you draw a star yourself. So you just start with a triangle like that, draw a line down. I'm sorry, you start with an A shape, and then you draw the left arm down to the bottom point, and across the top, and just do it that way, and then go back and fill it in. I'm sure we all know how to do those. I'm just going to go ahead and let that dry now, and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. So obviously you can only work one side at a time. And again, likewise on the front, you only have the 3 stripes, or excuse me, the 3 stars. On the back side, you'll probably only have 3 or 4 as well. You can get really technical and look at an actual folded flag, to make sure that you have it completely accurate if that's what you want to go for. But I kind of looked at the picture, and I mean, you really only see about 3 or 4 of them. So I think as long as they're in line, it should be okay, and nobody's really going to check. So just make it look however you like. Alright, so we're all finished with this one. I think it looks very cool. Even if you have somebody that didn't, that was a military member that didn't pass away during an actual war, this is a really great thing. I remember when my grandma got her flag from my grandfather, it was just very special, so it's kind of a nice thing to have anyway. Alright, so on this rack we're going to do, this is just a round, kind of a round ball type rack. I'm actually going to do like a flag type heart, I guess. So I'm going to start with just the blue section, and then do the white, and then do the red. I'm not going to talk too much through this part, so you can just go ahead and watch the video and listen to the music. this section where I'm going to put the red stripes, you don't want to go all the way to the edge. I'm just going to kind of do like a fanned out red section on here. So I'm not going to explain exactly what it is that I'm doing. I'm kind of starting in this right top corner of the white and just doing, you know, however many stripes I want across in the red. And it should come all the way to the white, or as close to the edge of the white as you can, because you're going to put a border around this. So just kind of do it however you'd like. You can copy what I have, or you can just do your own stripes. Alright, so that does it for our Memorial Day rock painting class today. I hope that you enjoyed some of these designs. I can't wait to see which ones you create, and I hope that you have had a wonderful Memorial Day.